I signed the divorce papers while secretly pregnant with twins, and 7 years later, the man who abandoned me came back, begging to be their father. I'm Camille Hart, a single mother who once survived on formula coupons, studied law in the NICU while my son breathed through machines. I lost everything, and then rebuilt it all, piece by piece. Before I share my story, let me know where you're watching from in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you've ever overcome adversity for your family. Trust me, you'll want to hear what happened next. The champagne flute slipped from my fingers the moment Julian spoke those words. Crystal shattered against Italian marble, golden liquid spreading like my breaking world. I want a divorce, Camille. 20 minutes earlier, I'd been adjusting the centerpieces for our annual charity gala, making sure every white orchid sat at the perfect angle in our Miami mansion's ballroom. Now I stood frozen, barefoot among glass shards, staring at my husband of 7 years. The guests arrive in 2 hours, I heard myself say. My voice sounded distant, like it belonged to someone else. Julian straightened his tuxedo cuffs. That gesture I once found charming now felt like a dismissal. My lawyers will contact you Monday. For tonight, we'll maintain appearances. Maintain appearances. As if our entire marriage hadn't been just that, a beautiful facade hiding the slow erosion beneath. I'd ignored the late nights, the canceled anniversaries, the way he turned from me in bed. I'd decorated our life so perfectly that I'd forgotten to notice when he stopped living in it. The gala blurred past in handshakes and hollow smiles. I played the gracious hostess while my insides crumbled. Donors praised my event planning. Julian's business partners complimented my dress. No one noticed I was drowning in plain sight. But Veronica Crest noticed. My mother-in-law glided over during dessert, her smile sharp as winter. "Such a shame," she murmured, touching my shoulder with manicured nails. "Though really, darling, what did you expect? A Crest heir needs options." The word hung between us. Options. Children. The car accident in college that stole my fertility. She never let me forget it. I excused myself to the bathroom and vomited champagne and canapes. 2 weeks later, I sat in a lawyer's office watching my life get itemized. The beach house, Julian's. The investments, Julian's. The gallery where I'd showcased my interior designs, Julian's backing, Julian's name on the lease. "Mrs. Crest," the lawyer said, sliding papers across mahogany. "Your husband is being quite generous. A clean break, modest settlement. My name is Hart," I interrupted. "Camille Hart." I signed where they pointed, walked out with a check that would cover a few months' rent somewhere small. 7 years dissolved into a bank deposit. The moving truck came on a Tuesday. I packed what was mine, surprisingly little. My design portfolios, grandmother's china, the leather journal where I'd sketched dream nurseries I'd never need. I was taping the last box when the room tilted. The floor rushed up, and I barely caught myself on the kitchen counter. Nausea rolled through me, different from the champagne sick of the gala, deeper, familiar in a way that made no sense. At the walk-in clinic, I almost laughed when the nurse asked about pregnancy. "Impossible," I said. "Car accident, damaged fallopian tubes, 3 specialists confirmed." She handed me the test anyway. 2 pink lines. I stared until they blurred. "Congratulations," the doctor said 20 minutes later. "About 6 weeks along. These things happen sometimes. Bodies surprise us." 6 weeks. The Bahamas anniversary trip. Julian had been tender that weekend, almost like our beginning. Now I understood why. Guilt makes men gentle. I sat in my car in the clinic parking lot, hands pressed to my still flat stomach. Inside me, cells divided and multiplied, forming something impossible. Something mine. My phone buzzed. "Veronica. I heard you were at a clinic. Don't even think about trying to trap him with lies. Dr. Morrison confirmed your test results years ago. You're barren, darling. Accept it." The call ended before I could respond. I looked at the ultrasound printout in my lap. Just a tiny, bean-shaped blur, but undeniably there. Veronica had someone watching me. Of course she did. The Crest family protected their empire from gold diggers and inconvenient truths. I drove to the bank, deposited the check. Then I called the only friend who hadn't chosen sides. Maya, I need a favor. An apartment in Orlando, maybe? Somewhere quiet. Somewhere the Crest family lawyers wouldn't immediately look. Somewhere I could figure out how to be alone and pregnant and impossibly grateful for both. That night, in a hotel room that smelled like industrial bleach, I wrote in my journal, "Today I lost everything. Today I found out I'm going to be a mother. I don't know which scares me more." The pen trembled in my hand. Outside, Miami glittered like a city of broken champagne flutes. Beautiful and sharp and no longer mine. The Orlando apartment had yellowed linoleum and a window unit that wheezed like a dying animal. After the marble and ocean views of Miami, it felt like living inside a cardboard box. But it was mine. Or at least mine for the next 3 months until my settlement money ran out. I'd been there 1 week when the contractions started. "Braxton Hicks," the emergency room doctor said, barely glancing up from her clipboard. "Stress-related. You need rest." Rest? I almost laughed. I'd applied to 14 design firms that week. 13 hadn't returned my calls. The 14th had Googled me mid-interview, and I'd watched their expression shift. Crest divorce. Scandal. Liability. "Thank you for coming," they'd said. "We'll be in touch." The cramping returned the next morning while I stood in line at a job fair. This time I ignored it. Rent was due in 3 weeks. "Interior design?" The recruiter at booth 17 squinted at my resume. "Have you considered retail? We have positions at—" The room spun. I gripped the table edge as pain lanced through my abdomen. Someone screamed. Later, I realized it was me. I woke in another hospital bed. A different doctor, older, with kind eyes behind wire glasses, held my chart. "Ms. Hart, when was your last prenatal appointment?" The word stuck. 6 weeks ago, in Miami." She pulled a chair close. "You're 13 weeks pregnant, with twins, and you're showing signs of severe malnutrition and dehydration." Twins. The word echoed in the sterile room. "That's the accident. Doctors said I couldn't. Bodies heal in unexpected ways sometimes." She patted my hand. "But right now, these babies need you to take care of yourself. Do you have support? Family?" I thought of my parents, gone 5 years now. Julian's lawyers. Veronica's ice-cold voice. "No." She wrote something on a card. "Catholic Charities. They have programs. Use them." I clutched that card like a lifeline on the bus ride back to my apartment. Twins. 2 heartbeats where doctors swore none could exist. 2 reasons to keep fighting when I wanted to dissolve. The food pantry smelled like overripe bananas and industrial disinfectant. I stood in line between a woman with 3 toddlers and an elderly man counting pennies. My designer heels, the last pair I hadn't sold, clicked against scuffed linoleum. "First time?" The voice belonged to a small Cuban woman manning the coffee station. Silver hair, espresso dark eyes that missed nothing. "I can tell. You still apologize with your posture." None of us usually, mija." She poured black coffee into a paper cup, pressed it into my hands. "I'm Tia. Everyone calls me that. Used to be Teresa Herrera, Esquire. Now I make sure people get their caffeine before facing the world." A lawyer. I stared at this woman in her volunteer apron and worn sneakers. "What happened?" "Life," she shrugged. "Came here from Cuba with big dreams. Made it through law school cleaning offices. Built a practice. Then immigration law changed, clients disappeared, everything crumbled." Her smile carried decades of survival. "But I'm still here, still fighting. You will be too." I sipped the coffee. Bitter, strong, perfect. "I'm pregnant. Twins. and I can't even feed myself. So you feed them first. Everything else follows. She studied me with those sharp eyes. What did you do before? Interior design, but now nothing. You think because you're here, you're nobody? Mírame, look at me. Every person in this line has a story, a before, a possible after. She refilled my cup. You know what saved me? Going back to school. Not to be what I was, but to become what I needed to be. I can barely afford groceries. Financial aid, scholarships for single mothers, programs you've never heard of because you've never needed them. She pulled a notepad from her apron, scribbled furiously. Valencia College. Ask for Maria in admissions. Tell her Tia sent you. And come back next week. I make better coffee than this. I left with a bag of groceries and something more valuable. The first spark of hope I'd felt since signing divorce papers. That night, I Googled law school prerequisites, then financial aid, then programs for pregnant women. My settlement money wouldn't last, but maybe it could buy me a beginning instead of just an ending. I placed my hands on my growing belly. Okay, little ones, Mama's going to figure this out. The apartment was still a box. The air conditioner still wheezed, but for the first time since leaving Miami, it felt less like a cage and more like a cocoon. Something ugly that might eventually split open to reveal wings. The contractions started during my constitutional law midterm. 29 weeks. Too early. I gripped my pencil and kept writing, sweat beading on my forehead. Miss Hart? Professor Williams paused beside my desk. Are you all right? Another wave crashed through me. The pencil snapped in my hand. I need hospital. Everything blurred. Sirens, fluorescent lights streaming past. Someone saying emergency C-section while I begged them to wait, to give my babies more time. Please, I whispered to anyone listening. God, universe, the masked figures preparing surgical tools. They're not ready. I'm not ready. Riley came first, screaming and fierce at 2 pounds, 3 ounces. Noah followed silent, 1 pound, 15 ounces. They whisked them away before I could touch them. NICU, a nurse explained later when I woke foggy with pain medication. They're fighters, honey, like their mama. I couldn't see them for 12 hours. When they finally wheeled me to the NICU, I shattered. My babies lay in plastic wombs, more wire than infant. Machines breathed for Noah. Riley's chest fluttered like a broken bird. You can touch them, the NICU nurse said gently. Through the holes. They need to know you're here. I placed one finger on each impossibly small chest. I'm here, I whispered. Mama's here. For 3 weeks, I lived in that hospital chair, pumping breast milk every 2 hours, watching monitors, learning what each alarm meant. The Ronald McDonald House gave me a room, but I rarely used it. You need rest, the nurses urged. How could I rest when Noah forgot to breathe? When Riley's weight dropped? I dozed between feedings, ate when someone forced food into my hands, existed in a twilight of please, God, please, and monitor beeps. The bill came on week 4, numbers that didn't seem real. More than my parents' house had cost. More than I'd see in a lifetime. There's assistance, the billing coordinator said. Medicaid, hospital programs, and there's been an anonymous donation toward your account. Anonymous? Happens sometimes. Guardian angels, she smiled. Covers the NICU stay. I wanted to refuse. Pride tastes bitter when you're drowning. But I looked at my sons, still fighting in their plastic worlds, and swallowed it whole. Thank you. Whoever it is, thank you. Week 6, Riley came home. 4 pounds of miracle in a car seat that dwarfed him. I'd never been more terrified. Noah stayed another month. I split my days between the apartment and hospital. Riley strapped to my chest while I studied. The coffee shop where I'd found part-time work let me go. Too many missed shifts. I didn't blame them. How? I asked Tia during one of her visits. She'd appeared the day after Riley's homecoming with Cuban coffee and homemade formula supplements. How do I do this alone? You don't. She arranged premature-sized diapers in the drawer I'd converted to storage. You do it scared, you do it tired, you do it one breath at a time, but never alone. Even when the room is empty, you're not alone. Noah came home on a monitor that screamed whenever his oxygen dipped. I learned to change his leads half asleep, to distinguish between real alarms and false ones. Sleep became theoretical. My law textbooks gathered dust. One night, both babies screaming, Noah's monitor shrieking, formula warming too slowly, I sank to the kitchen floor and sobbed. This wasn't what I'd imagined when that pregnancy test showed positive. This was drowning in slow motion. My phone buzzed, an unknown number, but I answered from desperation for adult contact. Ms. Hart, this is Devin from the Women's Legal Alliance. We received your application for the spring scholarship. While we were impressed with your grades prior to recent events, we notice you've missed considerable class time. My sons were premature. We understand hardship, Ms. Hart, but the legal profession demands consistency. Perhaps reapply when your situation stabilizes. The call ended. I sat among scattered bottles and beeping monitors, two babies needing more than I had to give, dreams crumbling like old formula. Then Riley opened his eyes, Julian's eyes, but warmer somehow, and found my face. His tiny hand wrapped around my finger with surprising strength. Every woman is the lawyer of her own life, I whispered, remembering Tia's words, even when the case seems lost. Noah's monitor quieted. Both babies settled into rare synchronized sleep. I pulled my constitutional law book from beneath a pile of burp cloths and read by nightlight, Riley's breath warm against my chest, Noah's hand curled around my thumb. At 3 a.m., I emailed Professor Williams. I'll be retaking your class next semester. My children were born at 29 weeks, but are home now. I haven't given up. I need to show them that heart women don't quit, even when the world expects us to. His response came at dawn. I'll hold your seat. Some of the best lawyers I know started as single mothers. They understood justice because they'd fought for it with everything they had. I printed that email, taped it above the makeshift changing table, read it during every 4 a.m. feeding, every monitor alarm, every moment when giving up felt easier than going on. Congratulations, counselor. Dean Morrison handed me my JD diploma while Riley and Noah, now 6, fidgeted in their tiny suits in the front row. Summa cum laude. The faculty is impressed. 4 years of night classes, 4 years of studying during nap time, writing briefs at McDonald's play places, taking exams on 3 hours of sleep. But I'd done it. Mama, you're a real lawyer now? Noah asked afterward, chocolate ice cream already staining his shirt. Real as it gets, baby. The Women's Legal Alliance, the same organization that had rejected my scholarship, offered me a position as a legal assistant. I wanted to refuse out of spite, but pride doesn't pay rent. My first case file made me understand why I was meant to be here. Maria Gutierrez, 23, 2 kids, fleeing an abusive marriage. Her husband had the money, the connections, the smooth-talking lawyer. She had bruises and a minimum wage job. He says he'll take my babies, she whispered in our cramped conference room. Says I'm unfit, too poor. I saw myself in her eyes, that particular terror of potentially losing everything that matters. Over my dead body. I worked that case like my life depended on it, because hers did. Documented every bruise, every threat, every manipulative text. Found witnesses his lawyer missed. Built a fortress of evidence around Maria and her children. The day the judge granted her full custody and a permanent protective order, Maria sobbed in my arms. You saved us. No, I said, thinking of Tia, of Professor Williams, of every person who'd held me up when I couldn't stand. We saved each other. Word spread through the Miami immigrant community. The assistant who fought like a mother bear. who understood what it meant to have everything on the line. Within a year, I had enough saved to rent a small office space. Heart Justice & Co. Just me, a second-hand desk, and a coffee maker Tia gifted me. For the late nights, she said. They never end. My practice grew through whispered recommendations in food pantry lines, church basements, pediatric waiting rooms, women who'd been told they had no options, mothers fighting systems designed to exhaust them into submission. You can't save everyone, a veteran lawyer warned at a bar association mixer. Burnout's real in poverty law. But he didn't understand. Each woman I helped was me in a parallel universe where no one threw lifelines. Each custody battle won was my boys knowing their mother refused to let them become statistics. The twins thrived despite our cramped apartment and thrift store clothes. Riley, intense and brilliant, devoured books above his grade level. Noah, gentle and artistic, covered our refrigerator with drawings of our little family. Always just the three of us, complete in our incompleteness. Ms. Hart? My assistant knocked on my office door one Thursday. There's a potential client, but it's complicated. The woman in my waiting room wore designer clothes that couldn't hide her exhaustion. Veronica Crest looked older, smaller than the titaness who'd once towered over me at charity galas. My daughter-in-law, she began, then stopped. Ex-daughter-in-law, I've been following your work. Every muscle in my body tensed. If Julian sent you, Julian doesn't know I'm here. She pulled out a folder. My son, he's doing to another woman what he did to you. Younger, more vulnerable. She needs help, and I want to pay for it. I stared at the woman who'd called me barren, who'd orchestrated my exile. Why? Because I was wrong. The words seemed to physically pain her. About everything. About you. About what matters. I have grandsons I've never met because of my cruelty. They're fine without you. I'm sure they are. She stood to leave, placing the folder on my desk. The woman's name is Sophia. She's 4 months pregnant. Julian's lawyers are already circling. She reached the door before I spoke. I'll take the case. But not for you. For her. Veronica nodded. That's all I ask. I spent that night staring at the folder. Another woman carrying a Crest baby, about to be devoured by the same machine that had tried to destroy me. The universe had a twisted sense of humor. Mama, why are you sad? Noah asked, climbing into my lap with his sketchpad. Not sad, baby, just thinking about circles. Circles are good, he said, drawing one. They go around and around, but always come back. From the mouths of babes. I kissed his head and opened the folder. Sophia's case consumed the next 3 months. I fought Julian's team with everything I'd learned, not just in law school, but in survival. When they claimed she was a gold digger, I produced evidence of her prenup attempts. When they questioned her fitness, I had testimonials from her employer, her landlord, her entire support network. The day we won, Sophia hugged me so hard I couldn't breathe. He told me no one would believe me over a crest. Crests can fall, I said. Hearts know how to rise. That night, I found an envelope under my office door. No name, but I recognized Veronica's handwriting. They deserved better than my son. You all did. Inside was a photo, surveillance style, taken from afar. My boys at their school playground laughing on the swings. On the back, they look like fighters, like their mother. I burned the photo, but kept the message. Some circles, Noah was right, do come back around. But we choose which ones complete us and which ones we leave broken. The Miami-Dade courthouse hallway stretched before me like a tunnel to the past. 7 years since my last time in family court. But my body remembered. The industrial polish smell. The echo of expensive heels on marble. The way hope and despair mingled in the air. Heart Justice versus Crest Industries, the bailiff called. Courtroom 4B. My client, Angela Morrison, gripped my hand. You're sure we can win? We have truth on our side. I squeezed back. That counts for something. Angela's ex-husband had hidden assets during their divorce, funneling money through his company to avoid child support. Classic financial abuse. What I hadn't known when I took the case was which company. The doors opened. Julian stood at the defendant's table. Time had been kind to him. Silver at the temples, same perfect posture, wearing a suit that cost more than most cars. His lawyer whispered urgently in his ear, but Julian only stared at me. At my simple black suit, my drugstore heels, my mother's wedding ring I wore on my right hand for strength. Camille? He started to rise. Counselor Hart, I corrected, settling Angela at our table. We're here about the Morrison Trust Fund, nothing more. But his eyes kept drifting to my hands, searching for something. When recess came, he cornered me by the water fountain. You're a lawyer. Not a question. Veronica said you'd moved to Orlando. Started over. Your mother says many things. I tried to pass, but he blocked my path. Excuse me. Wait, please. He pulled out his phone, swiped to a photo. Do you have children? The image on his screen stopped my heart. A fundraising page for Riley's robotics team. Both boys grinning in matching t-shirts, Noah's arm slung around his brother's shoulders. The caption, Support Hart Academy's future engineers. How did you... My wife, ex-wife. She donated to every STEM program in the state. Recognized your name. His voice cracked. Camille, are they... No. The lie came automatically. I mentor disadvantaged youth. Now, if you'll excuse me, we have a case to finish. But the damage was done. Throughout the proceedings, Julian kept staring at me with those calculating eyes I remembered. The same look when he'd decided I no longer fit his life plan. We won Angela's case. The judge ordered full financial disclosure, back support, penalties. Justice served cold and expensive. But I couldn't celebrate. That night, I found Julian in the parking garage. They're mine. He leaned against my beat-up Honda like he had any right to be there. The boys, they're 7, maybe 8. The timing of what? Your divorce filing, your mother calling me barren, your family's lawyers making sure I disappeared quietly? I fumbled for my keys. You don't get to count backwards and claim fatherhood. I didn't know, because you didn't want to know, because Veronica made sure. I stopped. The boys didn't need my anger. They needed my protection. Leave us alone, Julian. We've built a good life without you. Their names. At least tell me their names. The desperation in his voice almost cracked my resolve. Almost. You want names? Angela Morrison's children are Lucy and Marcus, 4 and 6. They haven't seen their father in 2 years because he'd rather hide money than pay for their health care. Focus on them. I drove home shaking. Found Tia babysitting, the boys asleep on either side of her on the couch. Mija, you look like you've seen a ghost. Worse, the past. She extracted herself carefully from the sleeping pile. The father? I'd never told her explicitly, but Tia knew everything anyway. He saw their picture. He knows. Then you prepare. Men like that don't just walk away from what they think they own. The first letter came a week later. Julian's personal stationery, not law firm letterhead. I would like to meet my sons. I burned it. The second came with photos. Julian young, holding baby cousins. Julian teaching nephews to sail. Julian at charity events for children's hospitals. I've changed. Into the fire. The third came certified. My lawyers say I have rights. I don't want to go that route. Please. I finally responded through my own attorney. Your rights were terminated by abandonment. No contact, no support, no acknowledgement for 7 years. Stay away from my children. But I knew this was just the beginning. Men like Julian didn't hear, no. They heard, try harder. Mom, there was a man at school today, Riley mentioned over spaghetti that night. Watching soccer practice. Coach said he was a scout, but he kept looking at us. My blood froze. What did he look like? Old, Gray hair, fancy car. Noah chimed in. He had the same eyes as Riley. I called the school that night. Increased security, changed our routines, but I couldn't change genetics. Riley's intensity, his drive to win everything, pure crest, Noah's artistic eye, his need for beauty and order, that was Julian's too. You can't run forever, Tia advised. Sometimes the battle comes whether you're ready or not. She was right. The boys deserved truth, even if it hurt. But first, I needed leverage. I called in every favor, every connection. If Julian wanted to play the rights game, I'd show him what 7 years of fighting for other women's children had taught me. The war for my sons had begun, but this time I wasn't a scared pregnant woman with nothing. I was a lawyer, a mother, a survivor. And hearts? We don't lose what matters most. The letter arrived on a Tuesday, written in Noah's careful script on school stationery. Dear Mr. Julian, why didn't you want us? Sincerely, Noah and Riley Hart, your sons. I found it by accident, tucked in Riley's math homework. My hand shook as I read their innocent words, the question I'd dreaded for 7 years. Where did you get his name? I asked at dinner, keeping my voice steady. Riley pushed peas around his plate. The newspaper. Some kids at school said we looked like the Crest Industries guy, so we Googled. And the dates match up, Riley said with that brutal honesty he'd inherited. He was married to you. We're 7. The math works. Noah, always the peacemaker, touched my hand. We weren't going to send it, but then Tyler's dad came to career day, and Madison's dad coaches Little League, and we just wondered. Every single parent fear crystallized in that moment. I'd given them everything I could, but I couldn't give them what they were missing. Answers to why they were different. He didn't know about you, I said finally. It's complicated. Everything's complicated, Riley snapped, sounding older than his years. That's what adults say when they mean we screwed up. Before I could respond, my phone rang. Unknown number. Ms. Hart, this is Julian. I'm calling about... How did you get this number? The letter. Your son sent it to my office. I'd like to respond. I looked at my boys, their faces mixing hope and hurt. They're listening. Good, his voice wavered. Riley, Noah, I'm your father, and I'm sorry. Sorrier than words can fix. I didn't know about you, but that's my fault, not your mother's. I should have known, should have looked, should have been there. Noah grabbed the phone before I could stop him. Why didn't you love our mom enough to check on her? Silence, then. Because I was selfish and stupid and thought money mattered more than people. Your mother deserved better. You deserved better. We have better, Riley said fiercely. We have Mom. I know, she's incredible. But if you'd let me, I'd like to know you, not to take you away or change anything. Just to know you. I took the phone back. We'll think about it. That night, I sat between their beds like I had when they were babies. What do you want? To meet him, Noah said immediately. Just once. To see. To tell him what we think of him leaving you, Riley added. To his face. My fierce boys. If we do this, there are rules. Supervised meetings only. In public places. And the moment you're uncomfortable, we stop. They agreed, but I barely slept. Every instinct screamed danger. But maybe Tia was right. Some battles come whether you're ready or not. The first meeting was at a neutral location. A children's museum, Tia suggested. She came along, guardian angel in orthopedic sneakers. Julian arrived early, pacing the lobby like a caged executive. When he saw the boys, his composure cracked. They look... Riley has my father's nose, and Noah has your hands, I finished. I know, I see you in them every day. The boys stood slightly behind me, studying him. Finally, Riley stepped forward. You hurt our mom. Yes. You threw her away. Yes. Are you going to apologize? Julian knelt to their eye level. I'm sorry doesn't fix 7 years, but I am sorry. And if you let me, I'd like to prove people can change. Mom says actions matter more than words. Noah said. Your mom's right. She usually is. The meeting lasted 1 hour. Julian answered their questions about his childhood, his work, why he and I split. He was honest without being cruel, taking responsibility while protecting them from adult details. When it ended, the boys were quiet. We drove home in silence until Riley spoke. He's sad. Yeah, Noah agreed. Like really sad inside. You can see it in his paintings. What paintings? In his office, behind him on the video calls. They're all gray and blue, sad colors. Video calls. Boys, has he been contacting you? Just once, Riley admitted, to plan today. He said we had to tell you or he wouldn't come. I pulled over, fury and fear warring in my chest. You cannot talk to him without me knowing. Ever. Understood? They nodded, but I saw the confusion. In their world, fathers were good. Fathers showed up. They couldn't conceive of one who might use them. The meetings continued, always supervised, always structured. Julian never pushed boundaries, never asked for more. He showed up, answered questions, then left. Slowly, something shifted. Not forgiveness. That wasn't mine to give. But understanding, maybe. He'd been 28 when we married, trained from birth to value legacy over love. It didn't excuse anything, but it explained some things. He's trying, Tia observed after 2 months. Even you see it. Trying doesn't erase history. No, but it might write a better future. The test came when Veronica appeared at meeting 6. Older, frailer, but still regal. My grandsons, she breathed, and I stepped between them. You don't get to claim them, not after... I know, she raised one hand. I know what I did, what I said. I was protecting a lie because the truth, that my perfect son destroyed something beautiful, was unbearable. She pulled out an envelope. These are medical records. Proof that I had Dr. Morrison falsify your fertility tests. Julian never knew. I thought if you believed you couldn't have children, you'd leave quietly. The ground tilted. Even knowing the truth, seeing it documented stole my breath. Why tell me now? Because I'm dying, she said it simply. Pancreatic cancer, months, maybe weeks, and I won't meet my maker carrying this sin. The boys looked between us, understanding that something momentous was happening, but not what. Boys, I said quietly, this is your grandmother. The mean one? Noah asked with devastating honesty. Veronica actually smiled. Yes, the mean one, who'd like to apologize, if you'll let me. They looked at me. I nodded. As my boys tentatively approached the woman who'd tried to erase their existence, I realized forgiveness wasn't binary. It was a spectrum. And maybe, just maybe, we could find somewhere on it to stand. The ballroom sparkled with Chicago's legal elite, but I couldn't stop tugging at my gown. 3 months since we'd relocated, and I still felt like an imposter among these Michigan Avenue lawyers. Stop fidgeting, Elias murmured, his hand warm on my back. You belong here. Doctor. Elias Park had entered my life quietly, first as an expert witness in custody cases, then coffee between testimonies, then dinner when the boys had sleepovers. Patient, kind Elias, who'd waited 2 years for me to trust love again. Ladies and gentlemen, the Bar Association president announced, the Woman of Justice Award recognizes extraordinary advocacy for society's most vulnerable. This year's recipient built a practice from nothing, revolutionized pro bono custody work, and proved that justice isn't just for those who can afford it. Camille Hart. The room erupted. I stood on shaking legs, kissed Elias, and made my way to the stage. In the front row, Riley and Noah beamed in their first tuxedos, Tia between them wiping tears. But my eyes caught on table 12. Julian sat with his new wife, a pediatric surgeon who'd lasted longer than expected. Beside them, a ghost, Veronica, wheelchair-bound but present, watching the family she'd almost destroyed celebrate without her. Thank you, I began, gripping the podium. 8 years ago, I lost everything. Home marriage identity. I was pregnant, alone, and told I was worthless by people who measured worth in dollars. Julian flinched. Veronica bowed her head. But losing everything taught me something. When you hit bottom, you learn who'll throw you ropes. A Cuban woman who fed me coffee and wisdom. A professor who held my place when babies came too early. Clients who trusted me with their children's futures when I was figuring out my own. I found my boys' faces. My sons were born at 29 weeks, 2 pounds of fight dressed in wires and tubes. The NICU bill was $847,000. An anonymous donor covered it. I never learned who. Veronica's hand trembled on her water glass. That generosity saved us. But you know what saved me? Other women. Women in food pantry lines who shared formula coupons. Nurses who taught me to change preemie diapers. Mothers who'd walked this path and promised it got better. My voice strengthened. This award isn't mine. It belongs to every woman who's been told she's not enough, who's chosen between rent and groceries, who's studied law books by nightlight because baby won't sleep, who's rebuilt herself from ashes because tiny humans needed her to. The presenter, a young woman, stepped forward. Ms. Hart, I'm Sophia Chen. 5 years ago, you saved my daughter and me from my ex-husband's legal team. Today, I'm graduating law school. Her voice broke. Because you showed me we could fight back. The room blurred. Sophia, young, pregnant, terrified Sophia who'd cried in my office, now stood confident and strong, handing me an award I'd never dreamed of. The cycle breaks, I whispered to her, when we refuse to let it spin. After the ceremony, Veronica approached. 3 months left, doctors said, but she'd insisted on coming. The NICU bill, she said simply. It was me. Julian never knew. I couldn't let my grandson suffer for my cruelty. Why didn't you? Because charity with strings becomes control. You needed to rise on your own terms. She touched my hand. Paper-thin skin over prominent bones. You were always enough, Camille. I was just too afraid to see it. Julian appeared at her shoulder. Congratulations. You've built something amazing. We have, I corrected. The boys and I. His new wife, Christina, stepped forward. I'm filing for divorce, she announced calmly. He's not cruel, Camille. Just empty. Chasing legacy instead of life. She smiled sadly. I wanted to meet the woman who survived him. Julian stood frozen as Christina walked away, his second marriage dissolving at my triumph. Poetic justice, maybe, but I felt only pity. You could have had this, I told him quietly. A real family. Messy mornings and homework battles and soccer games. But you chose empire over love. I know. He looked at our sons, laughing with Elias about something on Noah's phone. Is he good to them? He's teaching them to be good men, the kind who show up. Veronica's hospice nurse appeared. Time for medication. As they prepared to leave, she pressed something into my hand. A USB drive. Letters, she whispered. For the boys, when they're older. The truth about their heritage, good and bad. They deserve to know where they come from. She died 2 weeks later. Julian gave the eulogy to empty pews. Empire builders, it seems, don't inspire much grief. But my boys insisted on attending. She was mean, Riley said solemnly, placing a white rose on her casket. But she said sorry. That matters. Noah added his rose. Mom says hurt people. Maybe she's not hurting anymore. From the mouths of babes, again. Wisdom I was still learning. That night, Elias proposed in our tiny Chicago garden, the boys holding the ring. Marry us, Noah said. We voted. It's unanimous. Even Riley? I teased, knowing my protective son struggled with change. Even me, Riley confirmed. He makes you laugh. Dad never did. Dad? They'd started calling Julian that. Not with warmth, exactly, but acknowledgement. He existed. He'd failed. He was trying. It was enough. I said yes to Elias, to love, to the family we'd built from broken pieces. The cycle broken, the future bright, the past just prologue to who we'd become. 1 year later, the lavender field stretched endless under Montana sky, purple waves rippling in mountain wind. I'd dreamed this moment in a roach-infested Orlando apartment, planned it during NICU vigils, sketched it in law book margins. Now it bloomed real around me. You ready, Mom? Riley adjusted his boutonniere with 16-year-old seriousness. Elias is getting nervous. Elias is always nervous, Noah laughed, checking the rings for the dozenth time. That's why we like him. My boys, taller than me now, voices deep but hearts still tender. We'd survived together. Formula and law books, courtrooms and case files, broken hearts and building hope. Tia appeared in lavender silk, her officiant's license fresh as her smile. Mija, you're glowing. I'm terrified, I admitted. No what ifs. She gripped my hands. You've earned this joy. Take it. The music began, Noah's composition, played by his youth orchestra. He'd inherited Julian's artistic eye but channeled it toward beauty, not control. Riley, my fierce protector, now headed mock trial at school, arguing justice with his father's intensity but his mother's heart. We walked together, my sons and I, down an aisle lined with everyone who'd thrown us ropes. Professor Williams, NICU nurses, former clients turned family, the village that raised us when we had nothing but need. Elias waited at the altar, steady as always. He'd entered our chaos quietly, earning trust through Tuesday dinners and homework help, soccer games and therapy appointments. He never tried to replace anyone, just filled spaces we didn't know were empty. Who gives this woman? Tia asked. We do, my boys answered. But really, she gives herself. They'd insisted on that line. My children understood autonomy because they'd watched me claim mine. As Elias took my hands, movement in the back row caught my eye. Julian, invited by the boys, not me. Beside him, an empty chair. Christina had been right to leave. Some people choose empire over love, even when love stands right in front of them. The rings? Tia prompted. Noah produced them, engraved with coordinates. The NICU, where they'd first breathed. The courthouse, where I'd passed the bar. This field where we chose our future. Camille, Elias began, voice steady despite happy tears. You walked through fire carrying 2 babies and a law degree. You rebuilt yourself from ashes. I don't complete you. You're already whole. But I promise to stand witness as you continue becoming. Elias, I managed through my own tears. You waded through my walls and trusted through my terror. You showed my boys that real men stay. I choose you, not from need, but from want. Not to save me, but to share the life I've saved myself. By the power vested in me by Montana and decades of survival, Tia pronounced, I declare you family. The field erupted in joy. My boys hugged us, then everyone else, then us again. Sophia Chen caught my bouquet with lawyer's reflexes. Professor Williams toasted with grocery store champagne that tasted like victory. No honeymoon? Someone asked. This is honeymoon, I said. All of us, together, whole. As sunset painted lavender gold, Julian approached. Thank you for letting me witness this. Thank the boys. They believe in redemption. Smarter than their old man. He studied our sons, laughing with their new stepfather. I'm entering treatment. Real help, not corporate coaching. Maybe I can learn what you always knew. What's that? That love multiplies when divided. That wealth means nothing if you're bankrupt inside. He smiled sadly. Be happy, Camille. You've earned it. He left before the dancing began. Some circles close, others stay broken. Both can be okay. Mom, Riley called. First dance. But it wasn't with Elias. My boys had choreographed something special. The 3 of us swaying to the song I'd hummed in the NICU. Their hands, once premature small, now steadied me. Remember when you cried in the kitchen? Noah whispered. Baby formula everywhere, You thought we didn't see. But we did, Riley added. And we thought, if Mom can survive this, we can survive anything. You taught us that, Mom, Noah continued. That hearts don't just survive, we rise. The music shifted. Elias cut in, my boys blessing the transition with their grace. Around us, our chosen family celebrated under stars. Bright, infinite, ours. You're crying, Elias noted, thumbing away tears. Happy ones. Finally, happy ones. He spun me. This good man who'd waited years for my maybe to become yes. Who'd brought stability without stifling strength. Who understood that loving a survivor meant loving her whole story. Scars, children, and all. I love you, I told him, for seeing us whole. I love you for becoming whole, he replied, and for letting me witness the becoming. Later, as guests departed and boys helped load gifts, I stood alone in lavender. The night smelled like hope, like promises kept, like the future I'd built with bleeding hands and stubborn heart. You did it, Mija, Tia said, appearing beside me. Full circle, but higher. We did it, I corrected. All of us. That's the secret, she smiled. No one rises alone. My phone buzzed. A text from a new client, another single mother, another custody battle, another woman told she wasn't enough. Tomorrow, I'd fight for her. Tonight, I danced in fields I'd planted, surrounded by love I'd earned, wearing a crown made not of flowers, but of every moment I'd refused to break. The girl who'd shattered on Miami marble had become a woman who planted lavender, who raised warriors, who chose love after learning to love herself. And if that's not a fairy tale worth telling, I don't know what is. Mom doesn't need a prince, my boys had whispered. She is the queen who wrote her own story. Not everyone born in pain chooses to pass it on. And not everyone who falls stays down. If you're in the darkest chapter of your life, remember this. You don't need to be perfect to start over. You just need the courage not to give up. Share this story if you believe someone out there needs a reminder that we don't just survive, we rise.